Welcome to Northwest Aerospace News Live. I am Jennifer Ferrero, a writer for the magazine and your host. In today's episode, we are talking with Stas Mylek, Partnership Program Manager of CNC Software, which sells MASTERCAM, one of the most well-known manufacturing programs available. Let's welcome today's guest, Stas. Welcome.
Hi, Jennifer. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Well, Stas, thank you for coming on the show. MASTERCAM and its software solutions are well known in the aerospace and defense manufacturing community. Can you give us a brief history of the company and tell us how widespread the use of the software is in this industry?
Sure, Jennifer. Well, the company's been around for 40 years. We have upwards of 315,000 seats worldwide. We're headquartered in Tallinn, Connecticut. The company itself was really founded by three brothers. The consummate, we founded it in the bedroom by Mark, Jack, and Brian Summers. Initially, it was a milling product, but it's later grown over the years to support turning centers, wire EDM, multi-axis mill turn machines, routers, a whole variety of manufacturing equipment. I think our history is really based around development and innovation, and it's really been one of our strengths across all machining applications. And now that that legacy continues, Mark is retired. He's turned the company over to Megan Summers West. She's taken over the helm as president and CEO. So that legacy continues. And then back in 2021, we were actually acquired by Sandvik DPA. So from a manufacturing standpoint in the market, that makes us an even stronger player.
Well, on your website, it looks like MASTERCAM can provide software solutions for mills, lathes, machining, routers, and more. And I think we have a brief video to show here regarding the aerostructure part. What I'm wondering about is what trends are you seeing?
Well, I think, for us, more of our customers are looking for process improvements. They're moving to more complex part production, and that usually involves multi-axis equipment or mill turn type of machines. Two specific areas are work holding and setup reduction. So as a good example, in the part that's being shown here, you have a 3+2 machining approach, yet there's a considerable amount of simultaneous multi-axis movement that's involved. There's long reaches where the tool has to get into some very tight areas, and it becomes a little bit of a challenge. We're also seeing big moves in terms of taking, say, a 3D milling job that may have taken in the past 3 or 4 different setups or setup process, and now they're moving to machining where it's a 3+2 or a multi-axis configuration. And that involves improvements in work holding, particularly for those multi-axis machines. So we're seeing things like, what you see in the video, self-centering vices with these small, very rigid, small step jaws. So again, it changes your approach. You're taking maybe less aggressive cuts, so you can still complete the jobs. So yes, there's some interesting things happening. Even cases where we might have a mill turn machine or a turning center that has a larger, some of these machines have larger through bores. So they might be producing 2-inch small parts, but the bore is really holding 3 inches worth of material. And we're seeing shops that are now taking that large stock and actually programming 4, 5, 6 different parts, and they're just running these things continually. So, we're seeing quite a bit on the process end of things.
So thank you for sharing some of those trends. And let's talk a little bit more about new technology. And I think we have another video to show that demonstrates some animation. And so we'll bring that up here in just a minute. So let's talk about some of those other innovations in aerospace manufacturing and how that might impact the software that you sell.
Well, on our side, we started early on. About 15 years ago, we introduced dynamic motion, which is the technology that greatly improves, cutting of these types of parts, especially in the aerospace industry. We were dealing with some very difficult to machine materials, and dynamic motion is a perfect solution for that type of stuff. We're also seeing a number of new cutting tool advances coming out where these tools are designed to really improve surface finish and yet at the same time cut down on cycle time. So we introduced software technology that takes advantage. We call it accelerated finishing, but it takes advantage of some of these new cutting tools. Um, and of course, with that migration of, say, going from a 3-axis machine to either a multi-axis or a 3+1, 3+2, that means from a software standpoint, we actually have to simplify the process and make it easier for the programmer to get their job done. So we spend a lot of time addressing the user interface, making it easier to actually machine these complex parts and reduce the number of steps it actually takes to program these.
Hmm. Well, what's a good example of a MasterCam software success
Oh.
story?
Well, I've got a good one. There's a company called called Pro CNC, and it's right in your area. You guys may be familiar with Paul Van Metry. I like using him as an example. Um, Now, Paul started out with some colleagues. Paul was attending Western Washington University. He was involved in the Formula SAE program, building competition cars, and he learned design and machining needed to build these cars. And that experience out of the university and getting involved in the SAE program was actually instrumental in his decision to start a small machine shop. And that machine shop specialized in aerospace parts, including a number of different aerospace components, including, I think you have an example there of an aircraft door latch. They did a whole series of these for the Boeing series of aircraft. I think there was probably 21 or so different variations. And in the process, they developed a number of innovative practices. A lot of them were using multi-axis machines. And they took this philosophy of being aggressive, forward thinking, and they were very technology driven in an industry where at the time, and still, a little bit to this day, still have older practices that are still in play for many. Now, they went from a couple of guys and actually built that organization up to support 35 machines, 75 employees, to the point in 2014 they sold it off to True Life, and True Life has expanded the operations even further. And in talking to Paul, he said he would have never had the experience or the inspiration if he had just attended those classes. It was really that hands-on experience of getting your hands dirty, building parts in that SAE program that actually led to him actually starting the company and taking on manufacturing as a career.
That's a great story. And I'm sure I'm not alone in this, in that my son just became an aerospace engineer actually in the last year, and he's using the software as well. So it's very widespread. It's popular. Everyone likes it. So it's great to hear about that. Now, what we're hearing about at Northwest Aerospace News Magazine is a lot of people having trouble hiring here in the Northwest. How can MasterCam help with that?
Well, I mean, MasterCam, we've worked with schools for since the early days. 155,000 school seats in the educational community, but it also requires involvement in workforce development and getting involved in some of the local tech schools and sort of fostering that interaction and alignment between industry and local schools, and supporting some of the skills competition. And we see that quite a bit on our side. So we're involved in like the NASA Hunch program. We're a new sponsor for the Mars Rover Society Challenge Series. We're a global partner for World Skills. We're heavily involved in Skills USA. And that's a CNC and automated team challenge. And of course, we mentioned Paul's involvement in SAE International. We sponsor a number of programs around the country.
Wonderful. And I think we have some photos that we can show that demonstrate some of these training programs that you're talking about. But I guess, what does the training program really look like? And do you have any specific schools in the Northwest that are teaching this software that you're aware of?
Yeah, sure. Well, in the Pacific Northwest, especially in the greater Seattle area, there's a number of colleges. Wenatchee's one, Everett Community College. We have Green River, Renton Technical, Yakima Valley, Community College of Spokane. But in that area, we also work with local groups like AJAC. They run a program where industry can get involved. They run a program where operators can get trained, one night a week, and they're learning programming. But it's not just the CNC programming side of it. It's also the skills that are necessary to become a valued employee in a manufacturing organization. So that involves inspection, welding, deburring. They get trained in design and drafting, understanding, blueprints, tolerancing, and what's required. We also support Titans of CNC. They have an aerospace academy, and that's a great program where the training content is actually available to anyone who wants to get started. Just sign up for an account and it walks you through his entire aerospace academy. We also get involved in Project MFG, and that's a program that was set up by the defense sector when they recognized what we were dealing with in terms of workforce shortage and spotlighting that need. And again, very similar to sort of the AJAC program, it's advanced machining, multi-axis machine support, but it also integrates a number of the aspects related to manufacturing. So that again includes design, CAD, welding, inspection, metrology. And their program, if you're familiar with Clash of Trades, which you can see on YouTube, it's really about teaching individuals who are want to get involved in the manufacturing side of the business, how to read prints, deal with geometric tolerances, understand the basic machining practices, more importantly, how to inspect parts. And that leads into the whole CAM programming side.
Well, what I'm hearing from you, Stas, is that there's just so much opportunity for people to take these training programs, and then for manufacturers to probably hire out of the training programs, including AJAC. And we actually profiled them on our first episode of this show, so you can take a look at that on YouTube as well. But lots of opportunities, so I appreciate you sharing. Is there anything else that you'd like to end with today?
No, I think I really appreciate coming on the show and being able to talk about some of the programs that we have going on in the Northwest aerospace corridor. I think there's a lot of opportunity. Again, the industry's changing. I think it does take some forward thinking in terms of how to improve the manufacturing processes. And at MASTERCAM, we're trying to, just stay ahead of the curve and keep providing the tools that are necessary so that the job shops and companies out there supporting the aerospace community can compete.
Well, Stas, thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing such good information.
Well, thank you, Jennifer, for inviting me. It's been a great opportunity.
Well, if you're interested in learning more about MasterCam, check out mastercam.com. And until next time, keep engaging with the manufacturing and aerospace news you need to know by checking out Northwest Aerospace News Magazine. Goodbye.